Yeah, I remember the last conversation I talked about. I think I used the five A's, like the different kind of martial activities or objectives, right? Um, if you're doing more for athletics, right? Martial athletics, like combat sport is another term. Yeah, I mean, conditioning should be, tip top as high as you can, because you're going to be in there potentially, right, for many rounds, right? And you might be gassed out if you are not in shape, right? Now, also, maybe if you're doing martial aesthetics, that's like stunts, or acrobatics. Yeah. I mean, conditioning is important both cardiovascularly, because sometimes those routines are like, 2, 4, 5 minutes long, all out, right? Or you want to be in the movies, right? Like some of those, you got to repeat the scenes, right, for hours. So if you're out of shape, then it's also not going to be optimal, right? And also in terms of the acrobatic aesthetic aspect of it, you need more range of movement, right? Like you have to be able to do fancy and high kicks and spinning things. So now if you're doing it for like fitness, for kind of more meditation or spirituality, or even for self-defense, those kind of categories, I would say conditioning is not as important. Why? Because if you are doing it okay, the fitness part, yeah, okay, that's the point, right? To do martial fitness is for the conditioning. Okay, so now if you want to do it more for psychology, philosophy, spirituality, then it's not so important. Maybe just doing the regular forms and training are sufficient. You don't have to do conditioning outside of the martial movements, right? So I think that may be what you're talking about. So for the others, yeah, I mean, lifting weights and doing extra stretches, beyond the range of movement that you would actually use in your context is relevant, right? So what about for the self-defense part? That's a good question. Maybe in between, because if you're training for self-defense, do you need to have, let's say, six-pack? Do you need to be able to do a pull-up? Do you need to be able to do, whatever, 100 sit-ups? Do you need to be able to run, a distance under a certain amount of time, certain speed, or a marathon? I would say no. And I would say it's not wrong or bad or unnecessary. I mean, unhelpful, but it's not absolutely necessary. I would say, yes, you should be in good average shape, but you don't need to be in a super condition to be able to do self-defense well. And the reason is because you're not going to be fighting in the ring. You're not going to be doing these crazy, not crazy, but these very strenuous movements. I would say for self-defense, it's a bit more about strategy. And again, integration is that you should be able to throw your whole body mass and even accelerate it to the tip of your weapon, whether it's a fist or arm or elbow. And coordinate that to a certain point in time. So maybe put your whole body weight, right? You can't just kind of wiggle into it. Put your whole body weight, into your knuckles, right? That's coordination, I would say, is more important than conditioning, to the opponent's face or throat or chest, right? At a certain distance. And of course, when you train, right, then you have to do that, a number of times, dozens, hundreds of times. So, so in a way, this is kind of idealization. It's a bit hypothetical, but in a self-defense situation, right, someone surprises you, or you find yourself suddenly attacked, right, then it's more strategic. You don't want to wrestle with them. You don't want to dance with them. And you don't care to look good. As soon as possible, attack one of their vulnerable targets, right? Or any target ultimately, because the nervous system is the whole body. You don't have to use like these lethal points, like, here on the lips or the throat, or, I mean, even if you punch them hard on their shoulder, right? Unexpectedly, or elbow them in the back or whatever. I mean, it will cause a reaction. But if you can, of course, more focal, like throat is great, solar plexus, ribs, nose, right? Ears. But in the heat of a self-defense situation, maybe you can't be so precise. But if you just do like a whole body like movement to whatever, your shoulder to your elbow, whatever you can get on them, right? Boom, right? That's good. You need to be able to do that. And yes, maybe you need to do that multiple times, enough, I would say, to escape. So maybe that part of self-defense conditioning is good. Like you have to be able to at least run down the stairs or run around the block or run to the people who can help you, so definitely, let's say, in terms of, like more philosophy for the more spiritual, you don't have to be in good condition. Not that you should be unhealthy, and then for self-defense, maybe in a better shape than someone just training it for the internal and for the philosophy. And then if you're going to go into like, combat sport, well, obviously the fitness part of martial art, yeah, okay, that's why you're doing it. So it makes sense, right? Do your exercises, get a good workout. Now, if you're going to go into like competition and then like say stunts, yeah, I would say then conditioning is much more important. And when I say conditioning, I'm defining it as like push-ups, pull-ups, like lifting weights, stretching outside of the conditioning within the martial movement itself, right? Because that already is a kind of conditioning. Like we talk about tan, right? It's a bone conditioning, it's a muscle conditioning, it's a nervous system conditioning, right? But do you need to do movements outside of the technical parameters for self-defense? I would say not really necessary, not absolutely necessary for sure. Relatively, yes, but not absolutely. But if you're going to do combat sports, or if you're going to do like, performance, yeah, better be in good shape.